Hi, Misha here, and being a dealer and running this channel for over a decade, really a lot of the videos we do are ones that need to be done, like taking the hellion out. And they're a lot of fun and can be very rewarding. But unfortunately, sometimes our personal guns, our favorites, do get neglected. Well, recently I found a 60 round casket, quad stack, coffin mag full of 5.45 ammunition. And the reason it was full of it, I had loaded it. A customer, I'd sent it to actually a friend, and he said he couldn't get more than 10-12 rounds in it. So I took it and loaded it up to 60, and even to this day, not really sure why he couldn't. Either way, it stayed loaded up on the desk for quite a while. Kind of itching to shoot 5.45, hadn't done it in a while. I emptied it out because I wasn't going to burn through 60 rounds in one mag, not with the price of 5.45 these days. So I emptied it out into a couple of mags, and then was thinking, what 5.45 gun should I shoot? And then I realized I had not taken my Sega, my SGL-31, to the range in a very long time. And this is one of my favorites. So in this video, we're going to do just that. Run a few rounds through it, and then I thought I would talk about my top reasons that this is a favorite, and I really love this gun, which is why you see it in a lot of videos. So with that, it's been inactive for far too long. Let's run the first mag through it. SGL-31. That gun never gets old.
It's almost like you shot that one before.
Yep. And right there is one major reason. Being a factory-built gun, not a kit build, not a rechamber, it just works. And it works with pretty much any halfway respectable ammunition. So, as a shooter, you can take it out, plink with it, target shoot with it, whatever, it's going to run. So, definitely a good thing for a gun. Another reason, I've had a lot of fun accessorizing this, and I've done it over a very long period of time. Here on the table is the mag pouch I actually took out, because I do use these. This is a 3-cell, late Soviet style, early Russian style pouch. Holds 3 30-round mags and a cleaning kit tube. This is that 74M bayonet you saw in our recent bayonet video. This is actually a Bulgarian make, but it was actually only Russia and Bulgaria that made this. This is the proper type of bayonet. And likewise, here we have an AK-74/AK74M drop case or carry case. And it just has a simple pull. I don't have it fully knotted. And then of course this string just is very long and wraps around it. Oh, just very long. Very simple, but it gets the job done, and the idea is so the gun can be readily used. It actually has a pocket in here for one magazine, so there's one with the gun. And of course they make versions of this case for fixed stocks as well. And of course I found a Russian sling for it. The mag pouch I picked up from Numeric years ago. The bayonet actually came from K-VAR very early on, like 2002. The case here, I believe, came from Kvar sometime later. And frankly, the Russian sling, I don't know. And the accessorization, is that a word? I don't know. Didn't stop there. I've added several parts over the year to get this SGL-31 94 as close to a Russian AK-74M as possible. For example, I added the correct two-piece AK-74M muzzle brake. This might at first look like an AK-74 brake, but it's manufactured differently, and it uses a long collar, which is meant to keep it from moving, and it does. It fits very tightly. That was done for accuracy, so I found one of those. Here we have Russian handguards. This came from the factory with the Russian stock. Folding, of course. And it has the Russian cleaning kit that it came with too. I also picked up a Russian grip. And here we have a Russian magazine. This furniture is often called true black. It's a nylon reinforced with fiberglass. So it has kind of a unique texture to it, including the magazine. The muzzle brake I obtained from Cool Fire. I always reverse those. The handguard and pistol grip I picked up from Kvar. And the magazine actually came from Legion USA. For a time they brought over some really cool Russian parts and accessories. With that, let's put another mag through it. SGL-31.
What were you running through it?
This is a 5.45x39 gun.
Oh no, I mean what ammo?
Wolf or whatever. There's not that many brands in 5.45x39. I'm actually not sure what type of ammo was in that casket mag, but essentially, yeah, it's either going to be Wolf or one of the bears. Most likely me, it's Wolf. But it continued to run very well. Here's another part I didn't mention during the accessorization. The automatic latch, the spring-loaded latch for the top cover. I actually obtained this on the AK files a few years ago. Again, I've had a lot of fun accessorizing it. The next reason I really like this, it's something we never thought we would get. After the fall of the Soviet Union, a lot of cool stuff started coming in. If you think back to the 80s, pre-ban era, great, but there were not that many AKs coming in. You had Chinese, Hungarian, Egyptian. You had Valmets, which were loosely AKs, and you had Israeli Galils that are even more loosely AKs. But we didn't have Bulgarian, Romanian, Polish. We didn't have the Czechoslovakian, later Czech Republics, VZ-58. We had a small smattering of Yugoslavian AKs, but very small, and they were never in my neck of the woods. And we certainly did not have Soviet Russian AKs. So after 1991, the disillusionment of the USSR, things did thaw out, and we started to see Russian Makarovs and other things. But in 1994, the US and Russia signed a bilateral agreement in which Russia voluntarily agreed not to export military-type firearms for the American civilian market. Keep in mind, this is the same year of the federal assault weapons ban, part of the crime bill. And this is why we saw very sporterized Veprs and Segas appearing in the mid-late 90s and early 2000s. Cool guns. They were the first true Russian guns we saw. They were manufactured by Izhmash, which was the rebrand of Izhmash. And a lot of companies like Tromix spent time converting them. And that was cool, but there were a lot of artifacts left over. Like, for example, the holes in the receiver from having to move the trigger group forward. Well, in 2008, Arsenal, who had previously only imported Bulgarian guns, started to import Segas. And their first effort at a more militarized Sega was the SGL-10. That still had the hunting style buttstock with the trigger group in the rear, but the front end was looking more military. It had 24mm threads and standard handguards. But the SGL-10, which was only in 7.62x39, did not last very long. It would give way to the SGL-20, still in 7.62x39, but it had a pistol grip, it had a trigger group in the standard position, it took standard mags, and so on and so forth. The SGL-20 featured a bayonet lug, but it did not feature this back here, what we call the accessory lug. But that would soon be rectified in 2009 with the SGL-31. It gave us the accessory lug, and something people often overlook, the SGL-21 actually came with the true Russian front sight base with that long collar. Before, with the SGL-20, they were using a Bulgarian sight base. And then they introduced the SGL-31 61. Well, actually, it was first the 3147, I believe, which is a limited edition. These were the first 545x39 guns in the series. In fact, the sporterized Sega in 545x39 was very late coming to the market, appearing around the time all that cheap surplus 7 and 6 came around. But the SGL-31 47, I think, I should have looked it up, oh well, had a chrome-lined brake and came with a larger mag. The SGL-31 61 had a non-chrome brake and a standard 10-round Russian mag. But these were all fixed stockers. Now, I should say that the SGL-21s at the end of 2009, that fall and into the winter, got as cheap as $4.99 retail. The SGL-31s were never that cheap, but they did get down to about $700 for the fixed stock model, $758 in that range. Then in 2010, they released the folders here, and that's when I really got interested, because the AK-74M is a folder. And you can't just install this folding stock, and not easily, onto a fixed receiver. It's very complex. You have to cut the receiver just right, get the hinge in, get the front latch in. It's a lot of work. So when they announced folding versions, I was, quite frankly, over the moon. And that's why I never thought we would get this version. The SGL-3194 is so close to a military AK-74M, just semi-auto. I should note that the 94 has the modern solid body folding stock. The 84 had the more traditional triangle folding stock, although both used the 5.5mm hinge pin. And they both came with 10-round Izhmash mags. Later, when Arsenal ran out of the Russian mags, they would release the 95 and 85, respectively, with stocks. The only difference, these had 30-round Bulgarian mags included instead of the 10-round Russian. And of course, in 2013, the importer would officially change from Arsenal to Fime. But it was just a name change. Also, the box changed a little bit, and the markings changed. Here it is with the bayonet on. Because any of us that lived through the assault weapons ban, we love sticking bayonets on things. That's pretty much its in thing. I first saw an AK-74M in Russia in 2004 and never thought we would see anything like this in America, and for a reasonable price too. Even when these came out, they were only just a smidgen under $1,000, which seemed a little high back then to some people, but today seems downright cheap. Everything is pretty well here, except for the updates I told you I did. The only thing it doesn't have is the reinforcing plate over the pistol grip, which some people add. I never much bothered. Oh, also I put in a Vepr pattern semi-auto trigger group made by Fime in the USA. But everything else is here. And this has all the correct 74M features. Cool beans. And that takes me to the next reason. The AK-74M is a unique model, really only made in Russia and a few other places like Venezuela. And you can't really just take an AK-74 parts kit and make an AK-74M, not convincingly. And the Arsenal guns, like the SLR series, while good guns, are not 74Ms. And this does benefit from being made in the same military factory as, well, what's supplied the Russian army for long time. So everything here is tested and tried, and this is an import, so it's all correct and original. You have an original Izhmash. By the way, their name would change to Kalashnikov Concern right before being sanctioned. 1.0 millimeter receiver. You have an original 16¼ inch chrome lined cold hammer forged barrel. You have a true forged front trunnion. It's all Russian. Good stuff. And these come in to the US, or they came into the US, as unmolested as possible. For example, the trigger group was always in the forward position. Came in with a skeletonized thumbhole type stock, of course. But it did come in with the standard front handguards and what have you. And of course it accepts standard capacity magazines. But with that, yeah, what makes a 74M, and so why is only Russia doing them? Well, the pattern really evolved over time between really 1988 and 1994. They experimented with several different things to update, modernize. The idea was to replace the AK-74, the AKS-74, and various models that had optics mounts. And just replace them all with one gun, and also make production more modern and just more effective, less resource intensive, and frankly just less expensive. The earliest versions were kind of trialed out in 1990, and it was officially adopted by Russia in 1991. And even though it was the collapse of the Soviet Union, they still went ahead with these, although it would take a lot of time to really get them into service. They even kind of finalized the design. One of the first things they worked on was this long collar device, because they wanted to try to improve accuracy. They worked around this around 1990. They also went to a new pattern of gas block that was quicker and easier to make, lacking some of the lightning cuts. The front sight base also lacks some lightning cuts. Like I said, this muzzle brake itself is made from two pieces that are faceted together. This true black furniture is kind of a take on the 80s Plum, further developing it. It's lightweight, durable, easy to produce, strong, easy to replace. There's a steel heat shield in here, of course. One component they worked with in the early 90s, but it wasn't actually standardized until about 1992, was this third rivet, this flat rivet here. This is a bump rivet meant to aid the bolt in rotating into battery. It's also done in such a way that it can easily be replaced if it's worn, kind of trying to take wear off the trunnion itself and put it into a replaceable part. Not a bad idea. They also went to a smooth top cover versus the ribbed, and it's a little bit heavier gauge steel, so a little bit more durable, but also a little quicker to turn out. There's a lot of differences in the way the receiver's done. Even the trigger guard has this little kind of cloven hoof right here. Just little differences. They did first have the solid body stock around 1990, 1991, but the earliest versions still used the AKS74 4.5mm pin. Around 1992, they went to the larger 5.5mm, a little stronger. They also changed the angle a bit, just trying to improve things. They also made the scope mount a standard feature, whereas before it was optional. This folding stock is a standard feature too, although they have offered other versions with a fixed stock if needed. One of the final things they actually did was the spring-loaded takedown here. Those did not appear into the late 90s or even early 2000s, depending on which source you get to. So it was just an evolution. And again, the devil's in the details. So if you really want an AK-74M, which is still the standard in Russia today, even though it's being replaced by the AK-12, as we see in Ukraine, there are tons of these still kicking about. And they did effectively replace the AK-74, the AKS-74, many AKS-74Us, although there are some AK-105s in use, which is the 12-inch barrel version. And of course, this was a whole family for Izhmash, today Kalashnikov concern, with the AK-101 being in 5.56, and the AK-103 being in the traditional 7.62x39. But I've always liked to have kind of the standard Russian gun, and while eventually the AK-12 will fully supplant this, it's still very much current today. It was current in 2004 when I first encountered these, and it's still up, so that's really cool, I think. Speaking of cool, let's let J-Ro give it a whirl. J-Ro loves rockin' locks. Well, yeah, him and rockin' locks, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. And one thing we agree on, this is a lot of fun to shoot, even though it's a military stock gun. Over 7 pounds, not particularly modernized. Although Kalashnikov Concern has offered to update a modernization kit for these since about 2015, giving it rails and all that jazz. But it's a fun shooter, partially because of the caliber, 5.45, and partially because of this well-known, highly effective muzzle brake, and having a very decent stock. It has very little climb, very little snap, very little felt recoil. And it's just fun. And even though this is just a pretty standard trigger, it works really well. Everything is just smooth on it. Of course, I've shot it a goodly bit, as he pointed out in the first clip. But it does. It just works. One observation I've always had, and I don't think it's the guns, because I've observed it in like the SAR-2, the Tantal, etc. 5.45 to me has a little less felt recoil, a little less muzzle rise compared with 5.56. However, it seems to generate more heat. The guns heat up faster. And I've fired pretty close analogs in 5.56 to this, and they have a little more oomph, a little more kick, but the barrels don't quite get as toasty. So I've always observed that with 5.45. So I would not do 200 round mag dumps with these, especially with the cost of ammo today. And luckily there is a stainless steel heat shield, and these are built with military type parts, built to fire select if needed. So in semi-auto, you're not going to overheat them, but keep in mind this is a paint finish too, so it does have some phosphating underneath it. But in the Russian military, essentially it's a wear part. They'll just repaint them periodically as they come in for servicing. Just, yeah, like I said in the beginning, reliable, but also just fun. And that matters a lot. And my final reason is a bit of a double-edged sword, and is partially why this hasn't been out to the range to have some fun in a very long time. Back when the ammunition and even the guns were readily available, people shot the tar out of these SGLs or Segas or Veprs. Very smooth. Of course, you can put any AK trigger you want in it. Any AK-74 type mag, Bakelite, even the steel ones made by Poland and Romania can fit, although these are a lot lighter, more pleasant. Even though you have pretty standard iron sights, it does come standard with that scope rail, and there's tons of mount options. These stocks are solid as can be. And while these were on the market, they made a big splash. And I think people thought the good times would never end. But unfortunately, in 2014, they did. In March, the ball got rolling to sanction Kalashnikov concern, and it was made official in June of that year. This was because of the Crimea and other things, because essentially it's state-owned or partially state-owned and part of the whole war machine. Of course, any guns already in the country were fine. Even guns that were in transit that had already been bought and paid for were fine. So it would take until 2015, 2016 before people would really feel the pinch. And this is when 7 and 6 really dried up too, because earlier that had been banned because they decided that the military ammunition was armor piercing. And the problem with that, IO submitted a request to the ATF to import a semi-automatic version of the Onyx pistol from Poland, which the ATF approved, but then you had a 5.45 pistol officially on the roster, and thus ammo. It's a thing. Of course, after the Kalashnikov concern, the Sega ban came through, then people transitioned over to really buying Veprs. The Vepr FMs came out in 2015, 2016. They were the new hotness out of Russia. But of course, in June of 2017, Molat was added to the sanction list because they had partnered with Kalashnikov Concern to develop the RPK-16. So now both Russian companies were sanctioned, but we were still getting 5.45 ammo out of Russia. But of course, last year, August, September of 2021, Russian ammunition was effectively sanctioned or banned. And that was kind of the end of the ammo, plus the guns. So unfortunately today, these are creeping into collector territory. And while, yeah, I'm a collector, I'm also a shooter. And I'd already fired thousands of rounds through this and saw no reason to stop, and I still won't stop. But with the ammunition kind of uncertain today, it does give me pause, I won't lie. So I'm pretty selective about when I burn through my ammo. That's why I only took about 100 rounds out that time. So if you're a collector and you bought into these before the sanctions or right after, you have to admit it's been a good investment, as have these magazines from Legion USA. The true black mags were hard to get. They had them for a brief time, and now they're gone again. All of this stuff, surplus. When it's here, the prices are reasonable. When it goes away, though, prices go nanners. I've already talked about how the AK-74M is really only made in Russia and a couple other places like Venezuela we're not likely to get guns out of. Keep in mind the 1989 ban on non-sporting guns is still very much in effect. So yeah, the problem here is the ammunition. While 7.62x39 is made in a lot of places, and there are so many guns in America chambered for it, I'm not terribly worried about getting it. Price might go up a bit, but it'll be available. 5.45 though, only a handful of militaries outside of Russia and former Soviet Union states still use it. Romania is the biggest one that comes to mind. Of course, North Korea uses it. China would make the ammo, but those are both sanctioned. Poland adopted 545, but has zero interest in doing it again. And Hungary never made it. Czechoslovakia never made it. Bulgaria used it, but has, again, no interest in going back to it. Finland never made it. I think you're getting the drift. Places in the Middle East like Egypt, Israel, never made it. So I do believe we'll be able to get 545 ammo because there are enough guns in this country that we have a market. But the days of 10 cents, even 20 cents per round are over. Realistically, I think it'll settle in to 40, 50 cents a round. So that's why I only bring out a gun like this. You know it's a favorite once in a blue moon. I hate it, but that's kind of where we're at. And I love how 545 shoot. But today, as I've said in previous videos, it is kind of the era, if you want a small caliber, high velocity AK, to start looking into the 556s. And luckily, we have had a lot of good options come out of several countries. So some positive there. But for a time, from 2008 up to about, well, 2018, let's say, Russian AKs, be they Segas or Vepers, were really the hot thing and really the best value on the entire market. So at the end of the day, the reason this is a favorite and has been for a long time is it really ticks all the boxes. It's historic. It's something we never thought we could get. When they were available, they were reasonably priced. They're also fun to accessorize and quite easy to put into AK-74M configuration. And they're built with military grade parts, from the bolt to the trunnion to the barrel to the receiver to the furniture. They're not going to fail on you anytime soon, barring some freak accident. I mean, anything's possible with mechanics, but you know what I mean. And that leads into them being great shooters. They're reliable. You can depend on them. They're durable. They're actually quite accurate, so I'm told. They come with the optics mount. They come with a very good folding stock. They take more or less standard Kalashnikov stuff, furniture, mags, parts. They're great at the range. And I encourage anyone who owns a Sega or a Vepr, shoot it, enjoy it. You own it, so why not live a little? It's one of those guns that I plan on keeping, because even well over a decade after picking it up, I'm still just tickled to have one. If only they'd had an AK-105 come in. They probably would have if the sanction hadn't come down, but c'est la vie. Happy to finally get it out, even if kind of limited on ammo. I don't think I need to say it ran flawlessly, even with kind of mystery steel cased ammo, whatever I had in that mag, plus a couple other boxes that I grabbed. I think those are definitely Wolf. So, question. Who owns a Sega out there? If so, what is it? And do you shoot it? And have you modified it at all? Or do you keep yours unfired in the box? I have no idea where the box is for this one. It is long thrown away. And I'm okay with that, because I have zero plans to sell it. But it's brought me immense joy over the years. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's all about. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, buy some more 545 whenever I can find it, please check the link to our Patreon page. This is Misha. Catch you very soon. Next time.